Queen stood at the large window of her ship and watched the stars. Her home planet was far behind her now. She had been traveling for 3 days visiting the outer colonies of her empire. The ship was called the Eternal Dawn, and it was the biggest and most beautiful ship in the fleet. It had golden walls, soft blue lights, and enough room for 500 people. But today, something felt wrong. Was tall like all, she had 4 arms, pale purple skin, and eyes that glowed soft silver in the dark. Her people had ruled this part of space for 2,000 years. They were proud, elegant, and powerful. At least that is what she had always believed. Behind her stood her royal guard, 12 soldiers, the best fighters in the empire. They wore silver armor and carried plasma lances that could cut through metal like butter. Their captain was a male named. He had served the royal family for 30 years. He was supposed to protect the queen with his life. There was also one more soldier in the room. He was different from the others. He was shorter, had only 2 arms, and his skin was a strange pinkish color. His name was Park, and he was human. Had come to the ship 6 months ago. He was part of a treaty between the Empire and the humans of Earth. The two species had agreed to share soldiers as a sign of trust. Was the first human to ever serve on a royal ship. Most of the guards did not like him. They thought he was weak. Humans had no claws, no extra arms, no natural weapons. They needed machines and tools to survive. Captain often made jokes about the human when he thought could not hear. But the queen had watched carefully over the past months. He was quiet. He trained every day. He never complained. And there was something in his eyes that she could not understand. A calmness that seemed strange for such a small creature. The alarm came without warnings. Red lights filled the room. A loud sound echoed through the ship. Turned quickly, her silver robes flowing around her. "What is happening?" she demanded. Captain looked at his communication device. His 4 hands were shaking. "Your Majesty, the Collective, they have found us. 30 warships just came out of jump space. They are attacking." Felt her 3 hearts beat faster. They were the enemy of all life in the galaxy. They were insect-like creatures with sharp claws, hard shells, and no mercy. They did not want peace or trade. They only wanted to destroy. "How did they find us?" the Queen asked. "This route was secret." "I do not know, Your Majesty, but they are already firing on us. The shields will not hold for long." Through the window could see bright lights in the darkness. Enemy ships were everywhere. Small pods were flying toward the Eternal Dawn, boarding pods that were coming inside. "We must go to the escape shuttle," said. "Now, Your Majesty, we must protect you." The guards formed a circle around the Queen, moved with them, his rifle ready in his hands. He had not spoken a single word since the alarm started. They ran through the corridors of the ship. The walls shook as explosions hit the hull. Lights flickered on and off. Smoke filled the air. Everywhere could hear screaming. Her crew, her people were dying. Then the broke through. The wall to their left exploded inward. Metal flew everywhere. And through the hole came the monsters. Had seen pictures of them before, but nothing could prepare her for the real thing. They were tall, covered in black and green shell. They had 6 legs, 2 long arms with blades at the end, and heads full of sharp teeth. Their eyes were red and empty. The first one moved so fast that barely saw it. It jumped at the nearest guard and cut him in half with one swing. Blood sprayed across the wall. "Fire, fire!" screamed. The guards raised their weapons. Plasma bolts flew through the air. Some hit thee and burned through their shells, but more of them kept coming through the hole. 5, 10, 15. 2 more guards fell, then 3 more. They were faster, stronger, and there were too many of them. Watched in horror as her protectors started to die. These were the best soldiers in her empire. They were supposed to be unbeatable, but against they looked like children. Then something changed in Captain's eyes. The fear became too much. He looked at the Queen, then at the corridor behind them, and he made his choice. "Retreat!" he shouted. "Everyone retreat!" He turned and ran. The other guards looked at each other for only a moment. Then they followed their captain. One by one, they abandoned their queen and ran into the darkness of the ship. Stood frozen, she could not believe what she was seeing. Her sworn protectors, the soldiers who had promised to die for her, were running away. They left her standing in the corridor with 15 coming toward her. She was going to die, she knew it. There was no escape, no hope, no. A hand grabbed her arm and pulled her backward. "Get behind me, Your Majesty." It was the humans. He stepped in front of her, his rifle raised to his shoulder. His face was calm, his hands were steady. He did not look afraid at all. "Sergeant, you cannot fight them alone," said. "You will die." "Maybe," he said, "but you will not while I am standing." He fired his rifle. The first shot hit her right in the head. It fell to the ground dead. He fired again, another one fell, and another. The screamed in anger and charged at him, did not move back, he moved forward. Had never seen anything like it. The human was small compared to the monsters. He had no armor, no claws, no special powers, but he fought like a demon from old stories. He shot 3 more as they ran at him. When one got too close, he hit it with the end of his rifle so hard that its head cracked. When another tried to cut him with its blade arm, he ducked under the swing and shot it in the chest. Green blood sprayed everywhere. The smell was terrible but kept fighting. One caught him with its blade. The weapon cut across his arm and red blood flew out, made a small sound of pain but did not stop. He turned and shot that 3 times until it stopped moving. His rifle made a clicking sound. It was empty. There were still 5 left. They moved toward him slowly now, more careful than before. They had seen what this small creature could do. Threw his empty rifle at the nearest one. It hit the monster in the face, making it stumble. Then he pulled a knife from his belt. The blade was short, only about 30 centimeters long. Against creatures with arms like swords, it looked almost funny. But was not laughing. He moved forward again. The first swung at him, but he was already under its arm. His knife went into the soft part of its neck where the shell did not protect it. The monster fell. The second one tried to grab him, but he rolled away and came up behind it. His knife found another weak spot. Another body hit the ground. The last 3 attacked together. Closed her eyes, she could not watch the human die. But the sounds of fighting continued. Cutting, stabbing, screaming, and then silence. She opened her eyes. Stood in the middle of the corridor. Around him lay 15 dead. His uniform was torn and covered in blood, both red and green. He was breathing hard. There were cuts all over his body. But he was alive. He turned to look at her. His face was tired but still calm. "We need to move, Your Majesty. More will come soon." Stared at him, her voice came out as a whisper. "You stayed." "Oh yes." "Why the others ran? You could have run too. You owe me nothing." Wiped blood from his face with the back of his hand. He looked at her for a long moment before answering. "Because running was not the right thing to do," he said simply. "Can you walk?" Nodded slowly. She could not stop looking at this strange creature who had just saved her life. This small, fragile human who had done what her greatest warriors could not. "Good," said. He bent down and picked up a plasma lance from one of her dead guards. "Stay close to me, step where I step, do exactly what I say, understand?" "I am the queen," said. It was not a protest. She was just surprised that anyone would speak to her this way. Almost smiled. "Yes, Your Majesty, and I am the person keeping you alive, so please stay close." He started walking down the corridor away from the dead. After a moment followed him. She did not know where they were going or what would happen next. But for the first time since the attack began, she felt something other than fear. She felt hope. The ship was dying around them. Could feel it in the floor beneath her feet. The eternal dawn shook and groaned like a wounded animal. The lights in the corridor kept flickering, sometimes going dark for several seconds before coming back. Emergency alarms screamed from every direction. Moved through the chaos like he had done this 1,000 times before. He walked carefully, checking every corner before moving forward. The plasma lance he had taken from the dead guard looked strange in his small human hands, but he carried it like he knew how to use it. Followed close behind him. Her royal robes were ruined, covered in dust and blood. She had lost one of her shoes somewhere in the fighting, but she did not care about any of that now. All she cared about was staying alive. "Where are we going?" she asked quietly. "Main shuttle bay," answered without looking back. "It is on deck 3. We go there, take a shuttle, and fly to your fleet's backup command ship, the Horizon's Edge. It should be about 4 hours away at maximum speed." "You know the location of the backup command ship?" "I memorized all emergency protocols my first week on this ship." He stopped at a corner and looked carefully around it. "Clear, let us keep moving." Felt something strange in her chest. It took her a moment to realize it was shame. This human, this outsider, had prepared for disaster better than anyone on her own staff. They walked in silence for several minutes. The ship continued to shake. Sometimes they heard explosions far away. Sometimes they heard screaming. Each time's hearts beat faster, but never seemed worried. He just kept walking, kept checking corners, kept moving forward. "You are injured," said suddenly. She had been watching him move and noticed he was favoring his left side. Blood was dripping from his arm where they had cut him. "I know," said. "We should stop. I can try to help you." "We cannot stop, Your Majesty. They are spreading through the ship. Every minute we waste is a minute they use to find us." He glanced back at her. "I have had worse injuries. I can keep going." "Worse than this when?" Was quiet for a moment. Training accident when I was 22, broke 4 ribs and punctured a lung, took 3 months to recover, he shrugged. Compared to that, this is nothing. Did not know what to say. Among the warriors who were injured were supposed to rest immediately. Fighting, while wounded, was considered foolish and dangerous, but this human just kept walking like the blood running down his arm did not matter. They reached a stairway that led down to the lower decks, stopped and listened carefully. The ship was making many sounds, but underneath all of them thought she could hear something else. A clicking noise, like many legs moving on metal floor. Whispered below us, maybe 10, maybe more. Can we go around them? There is another route, but it takes us through the engineering section. That is probably where they entered the ship. It will be full of them. So we are trapped. Looked at her in the dim emergency lighting, his eyes looked almost gold. No, we are never trapped. There is always a way, we just have to find it. He thought for a moment, looking around the corridor. Then his eyes stopped on something on the wall. A small panel with the words "Maintenance Access" written on it. The ventilation system, he said. We can use the air ducts to go around them. Looked at the panel. The opening behind it would be small and dark. The thought of crawling through the ship's air system filled her with fear, but the thought of facing more was worse. I will follow you, she said. Opened the panel. The duct behind it was just big enough for them to crawl through. He went in first, moving on his hands and knees, followed, trying not to make noise. The duct was hot and cramped. His 4 arms made it difficult for her to move, and her robes kept getting caught on things. But she did not complain. She just kept crawling after the human in front of her. They moved through the darkness for what felt like forever. Sometimes they heard below them clicking and hissing as they searched for survivors. Each time stopped and waited until the sounds moved away. Then they continued. After a long time, finally asked the question that had been burning in her mind. Why did you stay? Did not stop crawling, Your Majesty. When the others ran, you could have gone with them. You are faster than me. You could have escaped easily without having to protect someone. Why did you stay and fight? There was silence for a moment. The only sound was their hands and knees on the metal. Let me tell you about my grandmother, said finally. Her name was, she was born in Korea on Earth in the year 2068. When she was 19 years old, there was a great earthquake. We call it the Seoul Collapse. Half of the city fell into the ground in less than 1 minute. Listened carefully. She had heard of Earth's natural disasters. Her planet did not have earthquakes, so the concept was strange to her. My grandmother was in a building when it happened, continued. The building fell and she was trapped under the broken stones. Everyone around her was dead or running away. She thought she would die there. But she lived. Yes, because a stranger saved her. A man she had never met. He was running away like everyone else, but when he heard her screaming for help, he stopped. He went back into the broken building and pulled her out. He carried her to safety. That was brave of him. It was, but it cost him his life. A wall fell on him just as he got her out. He died saving a person he did not know. Was quiet. She did not understand why this story was important. My grandmother lived another 73 years, said. She got married. She had 4 children. Those children had 11 more children. I am one of those, he paused. 37 people exist today because one stranger decided that saving a life was more important than saving himself. And you think about this man, this stranger. Every day, my grandmother told me his story when I was 5 years old. She said that real courage is not about being unafraid. It is about being afraid and doing the right thing anyway. Stopped crawling. They had reached another panel. Light was coming through the gaps. She said that we should all try to be like that stranger. That when the moment comes, we should be the person who stays instead of the person who runs. He pushed the panel open and looked through carefully. Then he turned back to. The main shuttle bay is just ahead, but there is a problem. Crawled up beside him and looked through the opening. Her 3 hearts sank. The shuttle bay was large and full of escape shuttles. It should have been their way to safety, but it was not empty. Soldiers filled the room, at least 30 of them, and in the middle of the room, surrounded by the monsters, stood Captain and 4 of her other guards. They were not fighting. They were not even holding their weapons. They were talking. What are they doing? Whispered. His face became hard. They are negotiating, trying to make a deal. A deal with the... They are offering information in exchange for their lives, ship layouts, defense codes, maybe even the location of your fleet. His voice was cold with anger. They are traitors. Felt sick. These were soldiers who had sworn to protect her. They had eaten at her table, walked beside her, promised to die for her. And now they were selling her empire to the enemy. Can we fight them? She asked. Shook his head. Not 30 of them. Not with just a knife and a plasma lance. We need another way. There is no other way, all the escape shuttles are in this room. Not all of them started crawling backward. There are maintenance shuttles on Deck 7, they are small and slow but they can fly, the probably do not know about them. Hope flickered in his chest, you know where they are. I told you, Your Majesty, I memorized everything. He almost smiled but his eyes were still hard. Come, we have to move fast, when they finish talking we'll tell them about you, they will start searching the ship again. They crawled back into the darkness of the ventilation system. Behind them could hear Captain's voice, high and afraid, telling the everything they wanted to know. She had trusted that man, she had believed in him, and he had betrayed her without a second thought. But the human in front of her, the outsider, the stranger, had stayed. He was bleeding and tired and probably scared, but he was still fighting, still trying to save her. For the first time, began to understand something important. Loyalty was not about words or promises, it was not about oaths or traditions, it was about what a person did when everything went wrong. It was about who stayed and who ran. She followed through the darkness. She did not know if they would survive, she did not know if they would escape, but she knew one thing for certain. If they did survive, she would never forget what this human had done. She would never forget that when her own people abandoned her, a stranger stayed. And she would spend the rest of her life trying to be worthy of his sacrifice. They crawled through the ventilation ducts for another 20 minutes. His arms were tired and her knees hurt from the hard metal, but she did not complain. Was still bleeding, still in pain, and he had not said a single word about it. She would not be weaker than him. Finally, they reached another panel, pushed it open slowly and looked through, then he nodded. This is Deck 7, the maintenance area. It should be empty, though would have no reason to come here. He climbed out of the duct and helped down. They were in a narrow corridor with gray walls and dim lights. It looked nothing like the beautiful golden halls of the upper decks. This was a working area, meant for engineers and repair crews. This way, said he was moving slower now, the blood loss was starting to affect him, but he kept walking. Saw a medical box on the wall, the red symbol on it was universal. She stopped. Wait, she said, we must treat your wounds. There is no time. There is time for this. His voice was firm. It was the voice she used when giving orders to her council. If you fall unconscious from blood loss, I cannot carry you. You are too heavy. We must stop the bleeding now. Looked at her for a moment, then surprisingly he smiled. It was a small, tired smile, but it was real. You are right, Your Majesty. I am sorry. I am not used to being told what to do. Get used to it. I am the Queen's. He almost laughed but stopped himself. The movement seemed to cause him pain. He sat down against the wall while opened the medical box. Inside, she found bandages, cleaning solution, and small devices for sealing wounds. She had never treated an injury before. Queens did not do such things, but she had seen doctors work many times. She knelt beside and began cleaning the wound on his arm. He made no sound, though she knew it must hurt. The cut was deep, going almost to the bone. You are very brave, she said as she worked, or very foolish, I cannot decide which. Both. Probably humans are like that. I have noticed. She applied a sealing device to the wound. It would not fix the damage completely, but it would stop the bleeding. Tell me more about your people. I have read reports, but reports are not the same as truth. Was quiet for a moment. His eyes were half closed from tiredness. What do you want to know? Why do you fight? In your history, you have had thousands of wars. You fight each other constantly. It seems very strange to us. It is strange to us too when we think about it. He took a slow breath. But we also protect each other. When there is a disaster, when someone is in trouble, humans come from everywhere to help. We are very good at both fighting and saving. That does not make sense. No, it does not, but it is true. He opened his eyes and looked at her. We are a strange species, Your Majesty. We are weak, we are small, we live short lives. We do not have claws or armor or extra arms, but we have something else. What? We do not give up even when we should. Even when it is logical to surrender, to run away, to accept that we cannot win, something inside us refuses to stop fighting. He shrugged. Some people call it stubbornness, some call it courage. I do not know what to call it, it is just how we are. Finished treating his arm and moved to check his other wounds. There were many cuts on his body, but most of them were small. The armor he wore under his uniform had protected him from the worst of the damage. They are not like this, she said quietly. We calculate, we plan, we do what is logical. When Captain saw that we could not win, he did the logical thing, he ran. And betrayed you. Yes, he betrayed me, her voice was bitter. I trusted him, for 30 years he served my family, he ate at our table, he swore oaths to protect us. And when the moment came, none of that mattered. Was silent for a moment, he is afraid. So are you, but you did not run. Fear is not the problem, Your Majesty. Everyone is afraid. The difference is what you do with that fear. He stood up slowly, testing his strength. Let fear control him. He let it decide what he would do. I do not let fear make my choices. I make my choices and then I live with them. How do you do that? How do you ignore the fear? Thought about this? I think about the people I am trying to protect. When I focus on them, the fear becomes smaller. It does not go away, but it becomes something I can manage. Stood up as well, she had never thought about courage this way. In culture, brave warriors were supposed to feel no fear at all. They were supposed to be above such emotions. But this human was saying something different. He was saying that courage was not the absence of fear. It was the choice to act despite fear. We should keep moving, said. He looked stronger now. The medical treatment had helped. The maintenance shuttles are close, just down this corridor and to the left. They started walking again. The ship continued to shake around them. Somewhere far away there was a loud explosion. The eternal dawn was dying piece by piece. When we reached the shuttle, asked, "Can you fly it?" "Yes, I have training on small craft. It will not be comfortable, but I can get us to your fleet." "And what happens then?" Did not answer right away. When he spoke, his voice was careful. "Then you will be safe, your fleet will protect you. The war with the will continue, but you will be alive to lead your people." "And you, what will happen to you?" I will need medical attention, real medical attention. The treatments you gave me are temporary." He paused. "I might not survive the journey." Stopped walking, what? Turned to look at her. His face was calm like always. "Your Majesty, I have lost a lot of blood. I probably have internal injuries that we cannot see. The shuttle trip is 4 hours. I will try my best, but I cannot promise anything." "You knew this. When you chose to stay and fight, you knew you might die." "Oh yes. And you stayed anyway." "Oh yes." Felt something strange in her eyes. It took her a moment to realize she was crying. Did not cry often. It was considered a weakness. But she could not stop the tears from falling. "Why?" she whispered. "You barely know me. I am not your queen. Your people and mine have only been allies for 2 years. Why would you give your life for me?" Was quiet for a long moment. The ship groaned around them. Finally, he spoke. "Do you remember the story about my grandmother, about the stranger who saved her?" "Oh yes." "I never knew his name. My grandmother never knew it either. He was just a person who saw someone in trouble and decided to help. He did not ask if she was worth saving. He did not calculate the risks. He just did what was right." He stepped closer to her. His eyes were soft now, not hard like they were during the fighting. "You are a person, Your Majesty. You needed help. I could give that help. Nothing else matters, not politics, not treaties, not logic. Just you needing help and me able to give it." Wiped her eyes. No one had ever spoken to her like this before. In her entire life, people had always treated her as a queen first and a person second. They served her because of her title, her power, her position. This human was the first one who seemed to see her as just a person who needed saving. "Thank you," she said. It felt like a small word for something so big, but it was all she had. Nodded. "You can thank me when we survive. Come, the shuttle is close." They walked the rest of the way in silence. The corridor ended at a large door with the words Maintenance Bay written above it. Pressed his hand against the control panel. The door slid open. Inside there were 3 small shuttles. They were ugly compared to the elegant escape pods in the main bay. They were meant for carrying tools and supplies, not people. But they could fly, and that was all that mattered. That one said, pointing to the shuttle on the left, "It looks like it has the most fuel." They moved toward it. Was just starting to feel hope again when she heard a sound that made her blood turn cold. Clicking, many legs on metal floor. She spun around. Standing in the doorway were 5 soldiers. They must have been patrolling nearby and heard the door open. Their red eyes focused on her like a predator looking at prey. Behind her, she heard whisper one quiet word. "Go." Then he charged at the monsters. Wanted to scream at him to stop. She wanted to grab his arm and pull him back. But her body would not move. She could only watch as the human soldier ran toward 5 warriors who could tear him apart in seconds. Fired his plasma lance as he ran. The bright bolt of energy hit the first in the chest, burning a hole through its shell. The creature fell backward, dead before it touched the ground. The other 4 spread out. They were faster than him, stronger than him, but was not trying to fight all of them. He was trying to buy time. "Go to the shuttle," he shouted without looking back. "Start the engines, go now." This time's body obeyed. She turned and ran toward the maintenance shuttle. Her 4 hands worked the door controls and she pulled herself inside. The cockpit was small and cramped, with controls she did not fully understand. Through the front window she could see fighting. He had thrown his plasma lance at a second, hitting it in the face. Now he was fighting the remaining three with only his knife. One of them slashed at him with its blade arm. He ducked under the attack and stabbed upward, pushing his knife into the soft part of the creature's neck, but another hit him from the side. The blow sent him flying across the room. He crashed into a stack of metal containers and fell to the floor. No, whispered. Her hands moved across the controls, trying to find the engine start. There were too many buttons, too many switches. No, no, no. Was getting up, he was slow now, and she could see that something was broken. He was holding his side with one hand and his face was twisted with pain, but he was still standing. The two remaining moved toward him. They were not rushing anymore. They knew he was hurt. They wanted to enjoy the kill. Picked up a piece of broken metal from the floor. It was not much of a weapon, but it was something. He held it in front of him and waited. Finally found the engine control. She pressed it and the shuttle hummed to life. The sound was beautiful. She screamed, "The engines are on, come now." He heard her. She saw him glance toward the shuttle, but they were between him and the door. There was no way he could reach her without going through them. So he went through them. Would remember what happened next for the rest of her life. The human soldier, injured and bleeding, charged at two creatures twice his size. He moved faster than she thought possible. The first swung at him, but he was already past it. He slid under its arm and came up behind it, stabbing his makeshift weapon into its back. The creature screamed and spun around, throwing off. He landed hard on the floor, but he rolled and came up on his feet. The second attacked from his blind side. Its blade caught him across the back, cutting through his armor and into his flesh. Made no sound, he just turned and grabbed the creature's arm. With a strength that seemed impossible for his small body, he pulled the off balance. Then he drove his broken piece of metal into its eye. Both were down, but so was he. Was on his knees, breathing hard. Blood was running down his back and pooling on the floor beneath him. Screamed again. She was at the shuttle door now, reaching out for him. "Get up, please, get up." He lifted his head and looked at her. His face was pale and his eyes were losing focus, but he smiled. "Told you," he said, his voice barely more than a whisper. "I do not give up." He started crawling toward the shuttle. Every movement seemed to cause him terrible pain, but he kept going. One hand forward, then a knee, then another hand. Slowly, painfully, he made his way across the floor. Jumped out of the shuttle and ran to him. She grabbed his arms and pulled, using all four of her hands to drag him towards safety. He was heavier than he looked. Human bodies were very dense. She heard clicking behind them. More were coming. She could see them in the doorway, dozens of them pouring into the maintenance bay. "Leave me," said. "Take the shuttle, go." "No," pulled harder. "I am not leaving you. You saved my life. I am not going to let you die here." She managed to get him inside the shuttle. She hit the door control and it slid shut just as the first reached them. Its blade scraped against the metal, leaving a deep scratch, but the door held. Pulled into the passenger seat and strapped him in. Then she jumped into the pilot seat. She had never flown a shuttle before, but she had watched pilots work. She understood the basic idea. "Push the left control forward to go forward," said. His voice was weak, but he was still conscious. "Pull back to go up. The red button opens the bay doors." Pressed the red button. The large doors at the end of the maintenance bay started to open. Through them, she could see stars and the darkness of space. They were pounding on the shuttle now. The whole craft was shaking. Cracks were starting to appear in the door. "Go," said Now. Push the left control forward. The shuttle shot toward the open doors. She heard the screaming behind her as they tried to hold on. Then they were outside in space and the screaming stopped. She pulled back on the control and the shuttle rose above the dying ship. Through the window, she could see the eternal dawn breaking apart. Fires burned in dozens of places. Debris floated everywhere. The warships surrounded it like wolves around a dying animal. "We made it," breathed. "We are out." Then she saw the interceptor. It was a small fighter, fast and deadly. It had been circling the main ship and now it had seen them. It turned and started flying toward them. "Enemy ship," said. Her voice was shaking. "Coming fast." Opened his eyes. He looked at the controls for a moment, then reached over and grabbed a handle near the pilot seat. "Moved," he said. "Let me fly." "You can barely move." "I can fly." His voice was harder now, more focused. "Trust me." Moved to the passenger seat and slid into the pilot position. His hands were shaking, and his face was gray with pain, but his eyes were sharp. He looked at the approaching interceptor and made a calculation. "Hold on," he said. He pushed the controls hard to the right. The shuttle spun sideways just as the interceptor fired. Green energy bolts shot past them, close enough to feel the heat. Flew like a madman. He sent the shuttle diving, spinning, twisting through space. The interceptor tried to follow, tried to get a clear shot, but he never let it. Every time it seemed like they were trapped, he found a way out. He flew them toward the debris field around the eternal dawn. Broken pieces of the ship were everywhere, some of them huge. He wove between them, using them as cover. The interceptor followed. It was faster than they were, and its pilot was skilled, but knew something the pilot did not. He knew that humans never gave up. There, he said, pointing at a large piece of debris ahead of them. It looked like part of the engine section, still glowing with energy. When I say now, close your eyes and cover your head. What are you going to do? Did not answer. He flew straight at the debris. The interceptor followed, closing the distance. Its weapons were charging for a killing shot. At the last moment, pulled up. The shuttle rose just above the debris. The interceptor tried to follow, but it was too close. It could not pull up in time. The fighter hit the engine debris. There was a flash of light, bright enough to blind anyone looking at it. Then a massive explosion that sent shockwaves through space. Had not closed his eyes. He had been watching, waiting for the right moment. The shockwave hit their shuttle from behind and sent them spinning, screamed as the world turned upside down. But was still flying, even spinning out of control, even barely conscious. His hands never left the controls. He fought the spin using every bit of skill he had. Slowly, the shuttle stabilized. Behind them, there was nothing left of the interceptor. "We need to go," said. His voice was almost gone now. The fleet, Horizon's Edge, 4 hours at maximum speed. He entered coordinates into the navigation system, then his hands fell from the controls. Reached for him, his eyes were closed, his face was the color of ash. "Stay awake, you need to stay awake." He opened his eyes a little. "Autopilot is set, just stay on course, you will be safe." "What about you?" He smiled and there was blood on his teeth. "I am very tired, Your Majesty. I think I need to rest now." His eyes closed again, his breathing became shallow. Grabbed his hand, her 4 fingers wrapping around his 5. "No," she said, "you are not allowed to die. Do you hear me? I am the queen and I forbid you from dying." He did not answer, but his hand squeezed hers just a little. Held on to him as the shuttle flew through the darkness of space. She did not know if he would survive. She did not know if help would come in time. All she could do was hold his hand and hope. And somewhere in the quiet of her mind, she made a promise. If they survived this, she would change things. She would make sure that her people learned what true loyalty meant. She would make sure that the galaxy knew about the human who stayed when everyone else ran. She would make sure that Park was never forgotten. The Horizon's Edge found them 3 hours and 42 minutes later. By that time had stopped breathing twice. Each time had pressed her hands against his chest and forced his heart to start again, using a technique she had seen doctors perform. She did not know if she was doing it right. She only knew that she would not let him die. When the warship pulled the shuttle into its landing bay, medical teams were already waiting. They had received the Queen's emergency signal and prepared for the worst. What they found was their Queen, covered in blood and dust, holding the hand of a dying human soldier. She refused to let go of him until they reached the medical center. Even then, she only released his hand when the doctors told her she had to. "Save him," she ordered. Her voice was like steel. "Use everything you have. I do not care about the cost. Save this man." The doctors worked for 16 hours. Human biology was different from, and they had to learn as they went. Twice his heart stopped on the operating table. Twice they brought him back. They repaired torn muscles, sealed bleeding vessels, and fixed broken bones. They replaced the blood he had lost with synthetic substitutes made from his own cells. Through it all, Queen waited outside the medical center. She refused to eat, refused to sleep, refused to change her ruined clothes. Her advisors came to speak with her about the attack, about the war, about the future of the Empire. She sent them all away. "The Empire can wait," she said. "This man saved my life. I will not leave until I know if he will live." On the 17th hour, the head doctor came out. His 4 hands were shaking with exhaustion. "He will survive," the doctor said. "It will take time, he will need months of recovery, but he will live." Felt something break inside her, not pain but relief. A pressure she had been holding for hours finally released. She sat down on the floor of the corridor and cried. The doctor looked confused. He had never seen a queen cry before. 3 weeks later, Park woke up. He opened his eyes to find himself in a soft bed, surrounded by medical equipment he did not recognize. The walls were pale blue, and gentle light came from somewhere above him. For a moment, he thought he was dead. Then he saw Queen sitting beside his bed, reading a data pad. "Your Majesty," he said. His voice was rough and weak. She looked up, her silver eyes were bright with happiness. "Sergeant Park, you are finally awake." "How long was I sleeping?" 23 days, you died twice during surgery. The doctors say you are very stubborn. Tried to smile, his face felt strange. I told you, humans do not give up. Set down her data pad and moved closer to him. She was wearing simple traveling clothes, not her royal robes. She looked different than before, less like a queen and more like a person. There are things I must tell you, she said, things that have happened while you were sleeping. Listened as she explained. The attack had been a disaster for the fleet, but the Queen's survival had prevented complete chaos. Her people had around her more unified than ever before. Captain and the other traitors had been captured trying to flee on a transport. They were now in prison, waiting for trial. Their names had been erased from all military records. They would be remembered only as cowards. But the biggest news was about the humans. Your government was very angry when they learned what happened, said. They said that if their soldier could fight and almost die for a queen, then the alliance between our peoples should be stronger. They demanded immediate changes to the treaty. What kind of changes? Full military partnership, human soldiers integrated into all levels of command, technology sharing, mutual defense agreements. She paused, and one more thing. What? They requested that you be permanently assigned to my personal guard. When you recover, of course. Stared at her, they want me to stay with you. Yes, I may have also made this request myself. She looked away and thought he saw her cheeks turn a slightly darker shade of purple. You saved my life. I trust you more than I trust anyone else in the galaxy. I would like you to stay. Was quiet for a long moment. Through the window of his medical room, he could see stars. He was somewhere in space, far from Earth, far from everything he knew, but he did not feel lost. I would like that too, he said. Smiled. It was the first real smile he had ever seen from her. Good, then it is decided. Over the next few months, recovered slowly. He learned to walk again, then to run, then to fight. Doctors were amazed by how quickly his human body healed. They started studying human biology more closely, trying to understand the species that had produced such a remarkable soldier. Meanwhile, the story of what happened on the Eternal Dawn spread across the galaxy. Other species heard about the human who had stayed when everyone else ran. They heard about his impossible fight against his desperate flight through the dying ship, his sacrifice to save a queen who was not even his own. Some species were frightened by the story. If one human could do all that, what could 1,000 do? 1,000,000. Others were inspired. If humans could be that brave, that loyal, that stubborn, maybe they were worth having as allies. Maybe they were worth respecting. The Empire began changing. The old ways of pure logic and calculation started to mix with something new. Young soldiers began training differently, learning not just how to fight, but why they should fight. They learned about courage, about sacrifice, about staying when running would be easier. They called this new philosophy the human way. 1 year after the attack, Queen held a ceremony on her new flagship. It was called the Eternal Dawn II, built to honor the ship that had been lost. Thousands of humans gathered in the Great Hall to witness the event. Stood at the center of the room wearing her full royal robes. Beside her stood Park, now captain of the Queen's Guard. He wore a new uniform, part human military design and part royal colors. 1 year ago, the Queen said, I learned what true loyalty means. I learned that courage is not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite fear. I learned that sometimes the smallest soldier can be the greatest warrior. She turned to face. The room was completely silent. Captain Park, you saved my life when my own guards abandoned me. You fought when you should have died. You refused to give up when every logical choice said to run. For this, I give you the highest honor the Empire can offer. She placed a golden pendant around his neck. On it was carved the symbol of her house, and below that, a new symbol that no one had ever seen before. It looked like a small human figure standing alone against a wave of darkness. From this day forward, continued, this symbol will represent the human spirit. It will remind all who see it that true strength comes not from size or power, but from the courage to stand when others fall. The crowd cheered, and humans together, their voices mixing into one sound. Looked at the pendant, then at the Queen. I do not know what to say, Your Majesty. Say nothing, you have already said everything that matters. She lowered her voice so only he could hear. You saved me, not just my life, but my understanding of what is possible. My people are stronger because of you. The Alliance is stronger. The galaxy is safer. I just did what was right. Yes, you just did what was right, she smiled. That is exactly the point. In the years that followed, the story of the human who stayed became legend. It was told to children on 100 worlds. It was studied in military academies. It was whispered in the courts of emperors and kings. And whenever someone asked why humans were so valued, why they were trusted in ways other species were not, the answer was always the same. Because when everyone else runs, humans stay. Park lived a long life in the service of Queen. He trained a new generation of soldiers, both human and he fought in many battles, won many victories, and saved many lives. But he always said that his greatest achievement was not what he did on the Eternal Dawn. I just stayed, he would tell young soldiers who asked for his wisdom. When everyone else ran, I just stayed, that is all. And they would look at him, this small human who had changed the course of history, and they would understand. Sometimes staying is enough. Sometimes it is everything.